So far we've looked at simple data types such as int num equals 4, and that is a integer variable, a whole number, and the value of 4. We've also looked at something like a string variable called name, which equals Bob. We've got simple strings, simple integers. Now that's fine, but sometimes you want to store a collection of variables. If I had some marks for a class of students, having a variable for Bob's mark equals 27, Jim's mark equals 32, Sarah's mark equals 47, I'd end up with 30 variables for a class of 30 students. What would be easier to do would be to have one variable with 30 places in it to store numbers. So that's what we're going to do. Instead of making a single integer, we're going to make an integer array. And I'm going to call it marks. I'm going to start off by saying it's a new integer array, and it's got 3 places. I'm only going to have 3 students in my class just for now, just to keep things simple. Now, as I've said before, computers love to start counting at 0. So marks 0, the 0th one, I can say, oh, they only got 12. Marks position 1, I can say they got 2, they did very badly. And then marks position 2, I can say they got 15. Hopefully those aren't percentages, hopefully they're raw marks out of 15. As you can see, I've created a data type and I've populated it with some data. Now this is nice because you can add marks manually, but if you know the marks before you start your program, you can actually put it all in one line of code. Here I'm going to say integer more marks equals a new integer array, but instead of stating the size 3 for having 3 positions, 3 people, I'm going to leave that blank because I state what values I want in here. Again, I can put the same marks in, actually it'll do exactly the same thing. You can see position 0 is 12, position 1 is 2, and position 2 is 15. I've just created another array and it does exactly the same job, but obviously it's more compact. And this is fine if you know the marks at the beginning of your program. But if you were to get the marks from a user, you would probably state you want to have a empty array size 3, and you'd ask the user for 3 values to put into that array. And that's fine. Things change. You might have, in my case I've got a class of 3 students, you might have having a 4th student. So you say, oh, my array is size 3, I need to make it size 4. Now there is a command called array.resize, and it wants to know, right, what am I resizing? Well, I'm resizing my marks one, so I'll actually just hide this one for now. And at the moment it's size 3. Now I could just say I want it to be size 4, but in computing it's always bad to actually put a manual number. It's called hard coding, because if I was to change this to size 4, actually my program at the beginning, my resize command wouldn't really work correctly. So what we actually usually say is we say it's the length of this plus 1, because the length of that array is 3, so plus 1 means make it 1 longer than it currently is. So this now has made marks to be 1 longer. So now actually I can do marks, now remember it's length 4, but the number to index into it is the number 3, because 0 to 3 is now 4 items. You might be saying, is this actually working? Well, let's print things out to find out if they're working or not. So we're going to do a console.writeLine, but I can't just do .writeLine marks. I have to write out each item as we go. Now, computers always love to count from 0, so I'm going to use a for loop. I'm going to say integer I is my counter. It starts off at 0, and while I is less than, now I'm going to go through the length of the array. Again, rather than hard coding in a number, I'm going to say go around the length of the array. Now, if I've got one line of code, I don't need my curly brackets, but just for completeness, I will put curly brackets in so it looks correct. Let's just print this out. It should show us all of our marks: 12, 2, 15 and 33. What would happen if I didn't resize my array? If I tried to add an item into as a fourth number, position 3, a fourth number, without resizing it, my array is only 3 big. What's going to happen is I'm going to step off the end of my array, and it actually comes up with an error saying out of range exception. Basically, it's jumped off the end of my list and it gives me an error. So the computer will tell you if you try and do something wrong, and if you do get an out of range error, you've just got to check the size of your array. And in our case, if I've made the array to be one bigger than its initial, so it's now got 4 items, I can assign a fourth item. If we wanted just to show what my first original array was, it's just had 3 items in. If I don't resize it and I don't add another mark, this should print out my original 3 items, which it does. So arrays are very, very useful because we've stored 3 pieces of data just in one variable slot. Now, I've done an array of integers. You could do an array of strings. There is something called a two-dimensional array, which is more like a table structure, and I might look at that sometime in the future.